Senator Kirk, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to ask you about the resolution now pending in the Senate, sponsored by Senators McCain and Kerry. It's bipartisan. A number of people have signed on, including you, that would authorize our military action in Libya. Why do you think that's the best step?
I think the action is already happening, and the U.S. military and our NATO allies are about to win. We even had the intelligence on Friday that was published saying Gaddafi was thinking about fleeing Tripoli. That's a sign that the NATO alliance is about to win this conflict.
I wanted to ask you about the state of progress, which you've addressed, because this resolution essentially would say no ground forces, which the president committed. That wouldn't happen here, and also limits our action there to 1 year. Gaddafi's held on a lot longer than some people thought he would. Do you think we're getting to a resolution?
I think we are. I always take the time that I think it will resolve a military conflict and multiply times 4. So I've said to my colleagues that we will oust Gaddafi by Christmas, and then hopefully the news will be a lot better. He needed to win this war early, otherwise he would lose it. The rebels needed to not be defeated early, otherwise they would win it. And the House resolutions made no sense. You know, the House said, don't do this mission, but we won't cut off funding. We have troops in the field. We need to back those troops up and especially support our NATO allies, the French and British, that are flying combat support missions. And all indications are things are going well against Gaddafi. You,
of course, have served many years in the United States Navy. You mentioned our men and women who are serving overseas. And you mentioned the two items that were voted on in the House. And they did appear to be conflicting in those votes. What kind of message do our folks on the ground, not on the ground, but involved in this mission there, need to hear from back home?
I think they need to hear that we are with you, that there is no substitute for victory, that we have a clear mission of ousting the Gaddafi dictatorship responsible for the murder of everyone aboard Pan Am 103, and that the NATO alliance is strong, and that we support you. A House resolution that says we're denying the mission, but then we're not cutting off funding, was a complete confused message that should not have been issued during the final acts of this conflict. I think the Constitution was right when we have one commander-in-chief, and we should just push on to victory here.
And speaking of the commander-in-chief, there's been a lot of pressure and criticism on him about the fact that he hasn't come formally to Congress. The White House has submitted a report, but there are some who think he needs to come there and more formally explain this to the members of both the House and Senate.
I think the president should have very early asked for a resolution. He would have got it. I think one White House lawyer that said we're not in a conflict, that made no sense whatsoever. We absolutely are in a conflict. And I think everything becomes quite muddled inside the Beltway, but it's quite clear in Libya. We're on the side of the rebels. We are grinding up the Gaddafi military. He has now got strong opposition in his west and in his east. And a growing number of nations are providing military support to the rebels. And the biggest thing, we can do one big thing. We have seized $33 billion of the Gaddafi's money. We should give that to the rebels. The moment news of that hits Libya, it will provide a huge impetus for a final victory.
There are those who worry about who those rebels are and how much we really know about them. Do you think giving them that money would be the best idea?
Yeah, I think it can be confused, but in the end, they are going to remember who their friends were. And you see right now in the streets of Benghazi, any demonstration automatically has homemade American flags. And then leaders know that the people see the NATO air cover overhead. They know exactly who's on their side.
All right, Senator Kirk, very busy serving our country both in Congress and in the military as well. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, Shannon.
I also had a chance to talk with Senator Kirk about his request that the FAA launch an investigation into Delta's business alliance with Saudi Arabian Airlines, which reportedly places restrictions on Jewish and Christian passengers. Delta says it has a non-discrimination policy and cannot control the local laws of countries like Saudi Arabia. Well, that's not good enough for Kirk, and he is urging the FAA to look into the matter. The senator will be here on Fox again tomorrow morning in the 7 a.m. Eastern hour to talk about this controversy with Delta. He'll be on Monday's Fox and Friends tomorrow morning.